This Mokam Tefillah is for everyone to feel comfortable, from the Kippas Ruga to the Streimel, from the baseball cap to the Spodik, from Hasidish to Litvish, and everyone in between. This is the place where everyone feels comfortable. And we can thank our dear Rabbi for that, where he puts a special emphasis for everyone to feel welcome. Of course, it is nice to hear when people say, "Nice job, Aaron." But the true credit goes to these people who are behind the scenes, whether it's writing a check or with a word of encouragement, or even rolling up the sleeves and helping from time to time, like changing a light bulb or taking out the garbage, or helping serve and clean up before and during and after a kiddush, putting bags for him, etc., etc., etc. I can proudly say that almost every one of our Mispalalim is more than eager to help out. However, there are a few that are head and shoulders above others. Mr. Hanina Katz. I don't want to embarrass him. I will only repeat a quote that he always tells me, and I quote, "Aaron, never be afraid to ask me. I will always participate." End quote. Oh, and let's not forget next week's Kiddush, which is going to be, it's going to be huge. Yes, trust me, it's going to be huge. Believe me. And the reason that it's going to be huge, the Kiddush is because Hillary lost. Yeah, that is the Kiddush. Thank you very much. I would like to welcome Rabbi Ruben Shlita from the Rav of the Kal of Glogov. Like in the past, he always comes. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you. Mr. Joey Nathan, where would I begin? Therefore, all I'm going to say, on behalf of all of us, Joey, thank you for being Joey. And please don't change. We all want to wish you to get well soon with all your vigor that we all became so to know and to love. Thank you. Amen. My Rabbi and Chavrusa, and most of all, my great friend, Mr. Chaim Katz. What can I say? I'm so grateful that you are in my life. I truly don't know where I would have been without you, as a president or as a person. Thank you very much for being in my life. Mr. Shai Lieberman, for all the past work you've done in our shul, may Hashem bless you to be able to continue in the future with health and achavas hadas. Mr. Shamshi Kleinbart, I know he doesn't like his name to be mentioned, but as a Koros HaToif, on behalf of the entire shul, thank you. Mr. Sam Gottman, Hashem Yisborach should bless you and your dear wife with a long and healthy life. We miss you, Sam. My dear friend, Mr. Barry Hertz, very quietly, bein begufoi u bein b'mamoinoi. Mr. Chaim Klein, once a president, always a president. Thank you very much for always being there for the shul bichlal and for me befrat all the time. Thank you. Of course, we're not going to forget Mr. Akiva Flam. Where is he, Akiva? Is he here? He's not here. He's here. He had to go somewhere. Mr. Akiva Flam, keeping us up with the latest news every morning, whether we want to hear it or not. And I wanted to tell Akiva that I wish that he was on the radio so I can lower the volume if I feel like it. And last but not least, my dear wife Dina. Without her patience and support, I would have not been able to do this. Thank you very much. At this time, I would like to ask the Olam that you should have in mind in your prayers Mr. Toivi ben Sarah Goldstein and Mr. Bill Wax Zev Tzvi ben Chana Halevi for a refuah shalema, and to see them back in our shul Bekarev. Being president, besides the qualifications of knowing a little carpentry, plumbing, electricity, and how to use a shovel and a broom, all these challenges I can overcome. What I find most challenging is to raise funds. Rabbi, I beg you, please make my life a little easier. Open your hearts and your wallets, and may Hashem bless you for that. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight. Last year, we had the most that Malka ever in funds came in. This year, we want to top that, so dig a little deeper. Thank you very much. We'll talk about the numbers tomorrow. And now I'd like to introduce our Mored Asra. To start rattling off his midas toivos, for that we don't have enough time tonight, and I definitely don't want to mitzar him. Therefore, all I'm going to say, a man of character, a man of principle, a humble man, and an inspiration to us all. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, our Mored Asra, Harav Mordechai Shaina Shliter.
Today, Pashas Boy, we had the first mitzvah in the Torah, mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh, and of course the Shiloh would be why from all Taryag mitzvahs was this mitzvah chosen to be the first mitzvah that was given to Klal Yisrael as a klal. And the answer is that Klal Yisrael is compared to the Levana in several ways, and each way that they're compared to the Levana is important and indicates an important lesson, important part of Klal Yisrael. And one of them is maybe more crucial, goes more to the essence of what the Yid is supposed to be. And that is, the Gemara says in Shabbos, the Gemara says, Zeh Keli v'Anveyu, next week's Sedra, this is my God, I will glorify him. And Abba Shol says, Anvehu is two words, Anivahu, that we have to emulate the Rabbeinu Shalom. We have to be similar to the Rabbeinu Shalom, Mahu Chanun Rachum, Afatahei Chanun V'Rachum, just like the Eibusher is gracious and compassionate. The same thing, every Yid is supposed to be gracious and compassionate. And this idea is also represented in the Levana. The Levana is a reflection of the sun. The sun, Levana has no light of its own. It reflects the light of the sun. The same thing, every single Yid is supposed to reflect the Kedusha and the greatness of the Rabbeinu Shalom. And this is supposed to be our pride and joy, that we are a reflection of the Rabbeinu Shalom. The greatness of Klal Yisrael is not that we have percentage-wise more millionaires than other Goyim, other nations. Not that we have more Nobel Prize winners than other nations. The greatness of Klal Yisrael is that we are a reflection of the Rabbeinu Shalom. They tell a story of this Yidel who, in Russia, he never traveled by train, and he had to go someplace by train the first time, and he comes to the station, he sees two lines, a shorter line and a longer line. Of course, he takes the shorter line, and he buys his ticket. He gets on the train, and the conductor comes around to punch the tickets, and he gets all nervous. He has a green ticket, and everyone else has a white ticket. So he thought for sure the person at the station sold him the wrong ticket, or on purpose or by accident. So he doesn't know what to do, so he hides under the train seat, that the conductor shouldn't see him. The conductor comes by, and he sees feet sticking out from under the train seat, and he makes the guy get out. And he says, show me your ticket. And Nebuch shows him the green ticket, which is different than everyone else's ticket. Everyone else has a white ticket. And the conductor says, you have a first-class ticket. Why are you hiding under the seat? Why are you in this car? You belong the way in front. The guy said, the short line was first-class seat. The same thing, every single Yid should know that we are supposed to travel first class. Some Yidden are ashamed, they hide the Yiddishkeit. Baruch Hashem, us from Yidden, we are proud of Yiddishkeit. And the Yid is supposed to have a nivus, but we're supposed to have stolz in our Yiddishkeit, that we are a reflection of the Rabbi Shalom. We're supposed to have stolz also, that our shul is a reflection of the Beis HaMikdash, the Beis Mishkan and the Beis HaMikdash. We should take pride in our Beis HaKnesses. And therefore, everyone who's here tonight deserves a big Yasher Koyach for coming here tonight. Especially Yasher Koyach comes to our president. Every shul has a president, and every president in every shul is dedicated to their shul, but Aaron makes sure that this shul always goes first class. He always looks for the top. He doesn't want to be yotzes stamazai, and he always goes to the top. You could see by tonight's Malav Malka, for a guest speaker, he invited the top. He went straight to the top. He went to Rabbi Krohn to invite the top speaker for the Malav Malka. He also very easily could have gone to Spink or another base medrash here, rented a hall, and put down a few dollars, which it wouldn't have cost any more than this setup. But he went and he wanted to have a Hamisha Malav Malka by us in the Beis HaKnesses with music, and it means it doesn't happen by itself. In order to set up like this, you have to schlep benches. It doesn't happen by himself. So a big Yasher Koyach to him and to all those who help him, who he mentioned, those who he didn't mention, who don't want to be mentioned. They should all be gebenched for their work, which beautifying a shul and helping a shul is part of the mitzvah of Zekeli V'Anveyu also. And the Eibusha should help them all with Banei Chaim, Mazani, Revicha. They should have nachas von Kinder in Einiglach, and Parnasa and Hatzlacha B'chol Tov, B'gashmi, Yisur Baruch, Nisa Gitnavach.
And now the moment we've been waiting for. We ask our past president, Mr. Chaim Klein, to introduce our speaker.
Good Devach, everybody. I asked Aaron for the privilege of introducing our speaker, but the truth is, I really wanted to speak about Aaron also, and my comments are just icing on top of the cake of what everyone had already said, that Baruch Hashem, we have a dynamic administration, someone that gets things done, and it's all a credit to all of you that have selected him to be our leader as the president, and we wish him much, much success for more than 4 years, more than 8 years, any rumors notwithstanding. But I digress, and I'm here to introduce Rabbi Krohn. And I've heard from a number of you that you've never heard Rabbi Krohn speak before publicly. I'm sure you've all read his books and heard stories from him, etc., etc. You may have seen him at a bris. But I personally have had the pleasure of listening to Rabbi Krohn a number of times in the summer. Each year he comes to the camp where we spend the summers, and Rabbi Krohn speaks, and he speaks in multiple venues at the camp, and each time he's very, very well accepted. And it gets to the pasuk of in 2 weeks' time in Parshat Yisro, where the pasuk says, "Vayesaper Moshe lechosno." Moshe brings Yisro into the tent. He starts telling them stories, and the objective is limshoch es libo lekarvo letorah. That the purpose of all of these, I don't even want to call them stories because they're much greater than mere stories, but the engaging him into conversation to bring Yisro closer to Torah. Now, I've done this in the past. I don't know if Rabbi Krohn has been introduced like this before, but when I was in camp, I always had the pleasure of saying, Yamod Harav, Paysach Yosef ben Avram Zelig. So it is my pleasure and honor, once again, to ask Rabbi Krohn to address the Olam.
It is a great zchus to have been invited by the Rav Shlita, Rav Shiner, and by my new friend, Rabbi Aaron Mintz, who is really a very warm individual. We had wonderful conversations on the telephone. And to come to speak to all of you in this Heilige Beis HaKnesses in Keseh Yisrael. I don't know most of you, but Chanina Katz and I go back many, many wonderful years, not only to Camp Aguda and in Tervadas and on the baseball field, but I don't know, he didn't change in 50 years. It's amazing. It's incredible. And I just met a relative of mine, Mr. Klein, who tells me that he's my cousin's grandson, so that's wonderful. And to have been introduced by the gentleman who's the Gabbai, I don't know, he never, ever forgets a name. It's incredible. I don't know how these Gabboim do it. But I go to Camp Benos and Camp Chayil. He's the wonderful Gabbai. And so I appreciate being here tonight. Tonight we're going to talk a topic that hopefully is going to change each and every one of us. And that's called rekindling the inner flame. Many of us have the zchus to do mitzvahs every single day, all kinds of mitzvahs. And after a while you get used to it. And sometimes we lose the excitement, we lose the pizzazz. And that's the purpose of coming here tonight, to see how we can change that and to see how we can be elevated. So I want to begin by telling you a beautiful story. All of us that are zeicha to have grandchildren know that the grandchildren are always interested in impressing their Zaydis. So most people don't know that the Soloveitchiks and the Feinsteins are actually related. And this story took place with Rab Elia Pruzhina, Rab Elia Feinstein, and his grandson. Rab Elia Pruzhina's grandson eventually became an Odom Godel Ad Miyod. His name was Rab Aaron Soloveitchik. But when Rab Aaron was a little boy, 6 years old, he was davening slichas together with his grandfather. And as I said, the little boy wanted to make an impression on his Zayda. So when it came to Shema Koleinu, he was saying, Shema Koleinu, Hashem Elokeinu, Chuz V'rachim Aleinu, V'kabel B'rachim Roten Et V'sein. He said about Geshmak. And we all know the Taisha, the Psukim, that David should listen to our tefillos and be Makabel. Then the next passage, Ashiveinu, Hashem Elecha V'noshuva, Achad Yeshemenu Kikedem, David should come back to us, and that we should do tshuva. And again, he said it with great kavanah. Then he came to a pasuk that he didn't say with such excitement. And that was the pasuk, Al tashlechenu liyei zikna. Do not cast us away to the old age. Kechlois kachenu al tazveinu, when our koiches wane, don't forsake us. And the Zayda picked up that this pasuk, the little boy didn't say with such a geschmack and so loud. So after davening, he called him over and he said, Aaron, I want to ask you a kasha. When we were saying slichas, all the psukim, you said that was zay geschmack with a kavana. But what happened by that pasuk? Now, he knew Aaron was a genius. He knew very well what a Zayda was talking about. So he said, Zayda, that pasuk, Al tashlechenu liyei zikna, is not negaya to me. I'm only 6 years old. So, of course, Rebellia smiled, and he said to him like this, Aaron, mein Taira, I want to tell you the deeper pshat in that pasuk. The simple meaning in that pasuk is, of course, that Hashem shouldn't cast us away in old age. He said, but there's a deeper meaning. Li'ei zikna is the mindset of an old man. There are many people who could be in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, and they say, I'm out of here. I'm exhausted. I did my part. Let somebody else do it. I'm exhausted. That's the mindset of an old man. A person, a yid, can never get burned out. No matter what age you are. 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, no matter what. You always have to accomplish. You always have to be lebedik. You always have to be excited about Yiddishkeit. And you have to be excited. You have to live a life with excitement. And that's what we come to talk about. That's what he said. To the mindset of an old man. I remember one year, I was at an Agudas Yisrael convention. It was very, very late. The main session is Motzei Shabbos. And they had brought in a speaker, Dayan Chanoich Erentroy, from London. It was after midnight by the time he got up to speak. And he had to speak only a very short amount of time. Because it was very late. But the word that he said that night was so extraordinary and so powerful that every time we see each other, I'm very close with him, we always go over this word again. Because it's so important for every yid. And what he said was like this. In Parshas Vayetze, it tells us, "Vahi kasher yolda Rochel as Yosef," when Rochel gave birth to Yosef, Vayom Yaakov Lavan, Yaakov said to Lavan, "Shalcheni ve'elcha el makom la'arzi." Now you can send me to my place. I'm ready to face the world. So the Shem Shmuel, the Sachat Rabbi asked, Why Dafka? Because he had Yosef. He had Yehuda, all Jewish kings were coming from Yehuda. He had Levi, all Kohanim and Leviim were coming from Levi. All the Talmidei Chachamim came from Yisachar, the Rebbeim came from Shimon. What's with Yosef? Zog the Heilige Sachachav Rebbe. He says like this, the Shem Shmuel. He says it's in the name. Yosef means more. Never being satisfied with the status quo. Always wanting to do more. Always wanting to steig hecher. Always wanting to go higher. He said, once I have a child that's going to go out into the world and never be satisfied with the status quo, always trying to make himself better, that's the kid. That's the one that I could face the world with. And that's what we have to learn tonight. How to become a person like Yosef. How to get that midah of excitement and want to accomplish more. So I'll tell you very interesting, Rabbi Shlomo Freifeld, many of you know that he had the yeshiva Shar Yoshev. It's really one of the fathers of the Baal Tshuva movement. And what happened was he once said a gewaldige story, and he said an ingenious pshat and a posik in Hallel. I have it underlined in my siddur. I'm a big believer. When you hear a pshat and a posik that we daven, whether it's in the Hallelujos and Ashrei Shemoneh Esrei, underline it in your siddur. I'm a big believer of davening in your own siddur every day, not just to take one off the shelf. Because if you hear a great pshat, as you're going to hear in a minute, and you underline it, the next time you daven in your own siddur, and that's underlined, that siddur is talking to you. Because you're going to remember what it said, what that vort was. So let me tell you, he tells a story. He told a story about the Kotzker Rebbe that went to faher little boys in the Chadorim. He comes to one particular cheder, and their kids are finishing Parsha Bereshis. Not Chumash Bereshis, Parsha Bereshis. Excuse me. Now, all of us know that the whole Parsha Bereshis is very exciting. There's a lot of stories. Odom and Chava and Cain and Hevel, the Nochosh. It's a tumultach. A ganze Parsha, except at the end. At the end, it's just chronology. It's just telling you how long people lived and when they died, how long they lived and how they died, and it goes on. That's where the kids were up to. So the Kotzker comes into the classroom, and he says, Nu, Yingala, zog the posik that you're learning. Now, Chassidish yeshivas, they learn with a niggin. So the little boy said, Vayechi Odom had gelebt. And it says how many years? 930. Vayamos and gestorben. Vayechi Sheis had gelebt. How many years? 912. Vayamos and gestorben. So the Kotzker said, that's not how you say the posik. Kid was surprised. That's exactly how the Rebbe said. He said, Zog nochamal. So the kid said, Vayechi Odom had gelebt. And then how many years? Vayamos and gestorben. Vayechi Sheis had gelebt. Vayamos and gestorben. He said, no, that's not how you say it. So now even the Rebbe was surprised, because that's exactly how the Rebbe taught it. So the Kotzker said, I'll tell you how you say this pasuk. Vayechi et gelebt. Vayamos es gestorben. Vayechi et gelebt. Vayamos und es gestorben. And then Rav Freifeld said a great pshat. He said, that's the pshat that when we say in Hallel, loy amos ki echya. The simple meaning is, I will not die, I will live in Vasaper Maseko. I'm going to tell over the glories of Hashem. Rav Freifeld teached a different pshat. Ki has many meanings. Ki could mean while. Loy amos, I'm not going to live a life of death. Ki amos, ki echya, while I am alive. There are a lot of people that are dead when they're walking around. They wake up in the morning, they come to shul, they're davening to go to work, they go home, they go to sleep, same thing, over it. They're just walking around they're not alive. It's a dead type of life. They're just going through by road. Of course, they get a schar for doing the mitzvah, but it's not levendigkeit. Lo yamos. You can't live a life of death while you're alive. David should give you the capacity to live and breathe and walk and talk and accomplish. That's what you're supposed to do. So I'll tell you something amazing. I have the great zchus to travel to many, many Jewish places around the world. And one of the places that I love to go is in Antwerp. There was a Rav in Nebuch, he passed away, he was the Novominsker Rebbe's Mechutin, Rabbi Yehuda Traeger. So I remember he once told me a gewaldige wort in Tillim. In Tillim, in Kuf Yutes, which is the longest kapitel, we know 8 psukim with Aleph, 8 with Beis. So the pasuk by Ches says like this. David HaMelech says, Chashti, v'loi hismamoti. I hastened and I didn't delay lishmar mitzvah to do your mitzvahs. So Rav Traeger asked, if he says he hastened, why does he have to say he didn't delay? If he hastened, he didn't delay. So Rav Traeger said something fabulous. He said, imagine you see a guy running to shul. Say, wow, that guy's so excited to get to shul. He's a gonadon, he's a lazy good for nothing. He woke up 25 minutes late. That's why he's rushing to shul. A guy's running to work. Say, whoa, he's so excited to get to work. Of course not. He woke up 25 minutes late. That's why he's rushing. Zog David HaMelech chashti. I hastened. V'lo yismamoti. I didn't delay. So I remember I once told this over, so Belzer Chosset told me that the Belzer Rebbe said this. I didn't hear it from him. But I heard that he said that if you're supposed to get to shul 7 o'clock, and the alarm clock goes off at 6 o'clock, so that's the Kol Kol Yaakov. But when you put your hands on the snooze alarm to sleep another 20 minutes, that's the Yadayim Midei Esav. It's a great line. I don't know if he said it, but it's still great. Kol Kol, yeah, somebody's clapping. That means her husband gets up late. So I want to tell you something. You know, anytime you write something, one of the most important things, believe it or not, is the opening sentence. Because today there's so much to read, and there's always been in Yiddish circles so much to read, all kinds of svarim and everything. And so the first sentence is so important because that gets the reader not only interested in the topic, but it shows you what the writer wants to accomplish. Many, many times, if I see an article and I just don't have time to read it, I read the first 3 paragraphs and the last 3 paragraphs. That's really what the whole thing is all about. So now, I remember one time, I was a teenager, and I was already 18, 19, and I decided, you know what? Let me see how the tour started Shulchan Aruch. You know, you learn Shulchan Aruch all the time, right? But the tour, the son of the Rosh, he knew every medrash, every pasuk, every Gemara, every Chazal. How did he start the Shulchan Aruch? How did he want us to get interested? Listen to what he writes. Tur Shulchan Aruch Sif Aleph. It's a Mishnah Ovais Hey Pasuk Chalkim. Yehuda ben Tema Oime. Yehuda ben Tema says, "Heavy az kanomer, be bold like a leopard. V'kal kanesher, light like an eagle. Rotz katzvi, run like a deer. V'gibor kari, be strong like a lion. Lasois ritzon avicha shabashamayim." To do the will of your Father in heaven. Imagine, of all the things that he could have started, the entire Shulchan Aruch, which has 1,704 simanim, I added them up. 1,704 simanim, over 10,000 halachas. What's the first thing he can tell us? Rotz katzvi, run like a deer. Gibor karbi, be strong like a lion. And when I saw that, I'm telling you, it touched my heart. And I'll tell you why. Because when I was a kid, as I mentioned before, but Hanina Katz, I lived for camp. And I lived to go to Camp Aguda to be involved in color war. That was my whole life. I loved color war. Lost every single year, except when I was general. Baruch Hashem, Dev Shad Rachmanis. But otherwise, that's what I... One year, Purim, my father says to me, "You're not going to camp." It was 1964. I said, "Pa, why am I not going to camp?" I was frightened because I thought maybe he couldn't afford it. He said, "This year you're doing something better." I said, "Pa, what's better than camp?" He said, "You're going to go to Eretz Yisrael." Now, this is 64, before the 6-day war. We didn't have the old city yet. We didn't have the Kaisel. I said, "Pa, why am I going to the Eretz Yisrael? Why are you sending me?" He said, "There's a Knessia Gedolah. All the Gedolim in the world are coming, and I want you to go there. And you're going to go with your tape recorder." Now, of course, in those days, there was no MP3s. There was not even cassettes. It was like reel to reel. You had to walk around with a boombox. I don't know if you remember. Like a big thing, and you had to have these... He said, "You're going to go to all the sessions. You'll record them, and you'll stay 2-3 weeks afterwards. You'll go visit the Gedolim. It'll change your life forever." Okay, I was never on a plane. Certainly overseas not. To me, it was like I was going to Har Sinai. You know, like dry desert land. I couldn't picture Eretz Yisrael, you know, as a regular city in a regular country. And sure enough, I came there, and the Knessia was out of this world. I will never, ever forget the night of Chinuch. Rav Moshe Feinstein spoke, and then Rav Kreisworth, that was the first time that I saw him. He read a daf of Gemara, an amud of Gemara, like by heart, as if it was on a teleprompter. It was unbelievable how he knew. The only one that I ever saw like that was Rabbi Weiss. So sein gesund. The mamish could read a whole daf, you know, as if he's just reading it off a teleprompter. And then that night, there was a tall, striking man, Rav Toledano from Morocco. He wore a red fez, a tall man with a long white beard, and he was crying. Nobody could understand what he was saying, but everybody was crying with him because he kept on repeating how the kids of Morocco are going off the derech, and there's nobody to help him and to help his family that's back in Morocco. It was absolutely incredible. And then finished the Knessia, and I started visiting various Gedolim. I'm telling you, it was such a great insight when a father does something for a son that's life-changing. I visited the Stipler. I visited Rabbi Elia Lapian. I visited Rabbi Chatzkel Sarna, Rabbi Moshe Chavreini. It was just incredible, the Gedolim that were alive at that time. And every day, and don't forget, in 64, there were no phones in Eretz Yisrael. Forget about cell phones. If you wanted to make a call, you had to go to the post office and make an arrangement when your father or when your mother was going to be home, and 7-hour difference. I was so confused, in the morning, in the afternoon, whatever. So for 2 months, I mamish didn't talk to my parents, but every single day I wrote them a letter, and every day they wrote me a letter. And one day I get a letter from my father. It's near the end of the trip. He says, listen, I know you're coming back soon. I would like you to do me a favor. I heard there's somebody who wakes up people for slichas. And he wakes up the people 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Could you please go and record that for me? And I'm thinking, this is crazy. I'm going to go 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. My father doesn't even know if this guy's alive. And I should record a guy who's waking up people for slichas. So I answered every letter except that one. A couple of days later, I get another mail. Maybe the post office is not delivering all the mail. But I wrote you a letter, and I'm asking you, please, find out if this guy is alive. And maybe you could record it for me. It would be so special. Okay, it's my father. He asked me twice. He paid for my trip. So I found out. Some people said he was alive. Some people said he wasn't alive. They didn't know. I was living near Geula in Rehov Tzfanya. That's where I had an apartment. And I asked the fellow to go with me because I was frightened to go alone. So it's 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. We go. It's mamish pitch black. And if anybody remembers, do you remember till where the Gvul was? Let's see who remembers. We didn't have the old city. So where was the Gvul? It was near where the Mir Yeshiva is today. Does anybody remember the gate? What was the gate called? Mandelbaum Gate. Right, that's right, the Mandelbaum Gate. So right near there was the Bukharian Heiser, and I'm walking around because I heard that he was there. All of a sudden I hear at night the voice carries, Shtei Tov Vasliches, Shtei Tov Vasliches. So I was thinking, that's what my father wants me to record? I can do that. Like, what's the big deal? So then I see the guy, a short little man, I see him in the distance. And I want to catch him. And me and this other guy, big, tall teenagers, we run over to this guy, and the poor guy is frightened out of his mind because he never sees anybody 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And now 2 guys are running with a chayfetz chashur. They're coming towards him. So I said, don't worry, we're Americans. That's the answer for Alam Shagassen. Don't worry, we're safe. He says, was wilt ihr? Like, what do you want from me? So I said, in Schuldig, mein Tate mir gebeten. He said, I didn't even know if he knows what a tape recorder is. I said, dos azach, du redst da rein, kämen es noch einmal hören. Like telling somebody that, if you talk to this lamp, it's going to talk back to you. Like, I didn't know if he thought I was serious or not. So I said, das ist a tape recorder in America. Und mein Tate mir gesagt, als du Emerson, was singt etwas an Nigen. Und weckt euch people vaslichas. So, do you know who that is? He looks me up and down and he says, das ist mir. I said, you're the one who does it? I said, could you please do me a favor? It would mean so much to my father if you could just sing it into this tape recorder. Just say it to whoever you're waking up. It'll be so special. Now, I am so embarrassed to do this for you, but I'm going to do it anyway because you will never forget this for the rest of your life. Just picture it. It is total blackness. The only thing that you could see is the Mount of Olives Hotel, in the Jordan on the other side of the border. And he closes his eyes and it goes like this. Yisrael am kodosh shtei toif lavodas haboirei rotz katzvi vegibor koari lasois ritzoin avicha shebashamayim Yisrael am kodosh shtei toif lavodas haboirei. Then he turns to me and he says, okay? Oh, was that okay? Yisrael am Kodesh. Yisrael, the holy nation. Shtei toif lavodas haboirei, get up to serve your creator. Rotz katzvi, that's what the Torah wrote. Rotz katzvi, run like a deer. Gibor kari, be strong like a lion. Lasois ritzoin avicha shabashamayim. Without exaggeration, my father Shalom must have listened to that tape recording 100 times. Every morning, every night, every afternoon. It was so special to him. And that year, that winter, 64, 65, was the first time Rav Shalom Shrodron came to America. And he stayed in our home. It's a long story. It's not for now. And one night, I'll never forget, was sitting at the dining room table, and my father has this tape recorder, and Rav Shalom used to record Mishnayos on tape, so he knew what a tape recorder was. And my father says, Rav Shalom, ich will the tzig bringen zu Yerushalayim. I want to bring you back to Yerushalayim. He says, Rav Avrom, was meinst du? and he puts on this CD, not this CD, this tape recording. And Rab Shalom is sitting there. I still remember. Tears are coming down his cheeks, and his eyes are closed. And when it finishes, he says, "Oh yeah, I remember this man. He was so young when I was a little boy. I was 4 years old at the time. I used to wait every night in Elul that he should come and sing that. And when he finished, I would wrap my blanket around myself and I went back to sleep." Like such a beautiful memory of Rab Shalom in those days. But that's what it's all about. Rodskat Tzvi Gibar Kari. Now, it's so min hashamayim that Rabbi Aaron called that we should do this in Parshas Boy, because in Parshas Boy we have a posik that Rav Hutner gives us such a great insight. In this posik, in Haitika Parsha, Ushmartem es hamatzos. So we all know there's no Nakudis in the Torah, so sometimes you could read the word a little differently, and that's what the Gemara does, that's what Rashi brings. Al tehi kari es hamatzos, don't only say Ushmartem es hamatzos, ela shmartem es hamitzvos. What does that mean? Just like you don't delay the matzahs, you have the opportunity, you got to do it within 18 minutes. You don't delay the mitzvah. Do it right away. That's what zrizis is all about. That's what excitement is all about. You got the opportunity to do a mitzvah, do it right away. So all of you know that I'm a mile. I got to tell you, this has nothing to do with the speech, but just about this here. Amazing thing. A couple of years ago, I got a call. I don't want to say from what area. And the guy has a boy. The bris is supposed to be next to it. I said, "What shul do you want to do it?" He said, "I can't do it in my shul." I said, "Why can't you do it now in your shul?" He says, "I'm embarrassed." "What are you embarrassed about?" He said, "We have a matzah minyan." I said, "A matzah minyan? What does that mean?" He said, "We finish in less than 18 minutes. So he was embarrassed that his family would come and see how they daven. So we did it in another shul. So I hope there's no matzah minyan around here. But anyway, that's what that guy was. But the truth is, that's not what zrizos is all about. That's what faking is all about. But the idea is zrizos. Is ein machmitz and etzam matzos, ein machmitz and etzam mitzvos. And you know what Rav Hutner says in Pachad Yitzchak? Siman Aleph and Paysach. You should look at it this year. You'll see an amazing thing. He says, why did the Eibusha teach us about zrizos in the word mitzvos? And listen to the chiddush that he says. Ki chasoren hazrizos. If somebody has a lack of excitement, b'avodas Hashem, ain't perush yesh kan heder hamayla shel zrizos. It's not the pshat. Well, I did the mitzvah, but I was missing zrizos. No, ela yesh kan kilkul chiyuvi. There's a damage, there's a corruption in the essence of the mitzvah. Hamavsit shleimus tzurasa shel hamaysa mitzvah. If you come to the morning daf and you're sleeping through it, you didn't learn the daf. That's not Torah. If you go buy a little Esrog and you just go in there and buy it without really looking at it, or being excited about a mitzvah when you sit in the sukkah, so then that's not what the mitzvah is all about. And then he writes, "V'ayadehu poigim es mitzvah." If you don't do it with excitement. So when we come here tonight, and we come here on Motzei Shabbos Parshas Boy, we have to make a commitment that we're going to love to do mitzvahs. So I want to tell you something that's very personal and very poignant and very beautiful to me. Some of you who know me personally know that my father passed away when I was 21. My mother, unfortunately, was an almana for 40 long years. She never got over the passing of my father. It was just terrible. It was just terrible. And, I have a great wife, Baruch Hashem. The furthest we ever lived from my mother was 2 blocks away. And my wife became my mother's best friend. But still, the pain of missing my father was awful. I walked down all my brothers and sisters to their chasanas together with my mother. We were very close. All the writing that I'm able to do is only because she taught me about writing. And we were very close. There was nothing that we didn't discuss or couldn't discuss. This past year, and she passed away in 2006, so it's a number of years already. Now, this past year before Paysach, my nephew, Rabbi Yehuda Gutman from Lakewood, calls me, and he says, "Uncle Paysach, I want to tell you something about your mother that you don't know." I said, "Hudi, it's impossible. I was so close to her. There's nothing you could tell me about my mother that I don't know." He says, "No, Uncle Paysach, I'm telling you, because it happened the last day of her life, and I was the only one that was there, and I never told it to you because I never understood it." He said, "This year I'm teaching in yeshiva in Edison, and I saw a Ber Heitev in Or Chaim, and all of a sudden it became so clear to me, so I want to tell you what happened." I said, "Hudi, I just can't believe this. Tell me." And he says like this, He says it was the last day of her life. It was the second day of Sukkot. She passed away at the beginning of Chol Hamoed that night. So this is the last morning of her life. And he told me, I didn't know if she was coherent. She certainly wasn't responding to me. And I went over to her and I said, Bubby, you know, I have a lulav and an esrog. Would you like to shake the lulav and the esrog with me? We'll say the bracha together. And she didn't respond. But I took her fingers and I put it around the lulav and the esrog, and I put my fingers around her. And I said, Bubby, we're going to say the bracha. And he made the bracha on Natilas lulav, and they shook the lulav to all, and esrog to all the sides. And then he said, I wanted to take the lulav and esrog, but she wouldn't give it to me. She was holding on to it very tight. So I didn't think that she knew what was going on. I said, Bubby, we already did the mitzvah. I said the bracha. So let me take the lulav and esrog. But she wouldn't give it to him. She was holding on to it tight. So I figured, listen, if she wants to hold on to it, he's not going to say anything. And he took away his fingers. The second he took away his fingers, she took the lulav and esrog that she had in her hand, she brought it to her lips, and she kissed it. And she told me. And he told me, I didn't understand why she did that. It's obvious that she understood this was a dvar mitzvah. It's obvious she did understand what was going on. And that night she passed away. He said, I never told it to you because I didn't understand why she did it. He said, this year I learned the Be'er Heitev. You have to all look it up. It is not to be believed. This is in Hilchas Afikoyim. Excuse me. Tov Ayin Zayin and Orach Chaim, Sifkot and Aleph. Listen to this. Kosav Shlo HaKodesh. The Shlo HaKodesh writes, Ro'isi Mibnei Aliyah. I saw from the Hecher mention, Shahayu Menashkin HaMatzos VaHaMorar. They used to kiss the matzahs and the morar. This is the first year I ever kissed a matzah. Me and my children and grandchildren say we're all kissing matzahs. I can't say I kissed the morar, but I kissed the matzahs. V'chein sukkah bichnisasai u'b'yitziyasai. When you go in and out of the sukkah, just like we kiss a mezuzah, that's how you're supposed to kiss a sukkah. V'chein dalad minis shebalulav. The Be'er Heitev writes. You're supposed to kiss the dalat minim of the lulav. I always do it because my mother did it. I never understood why she did it. I guarantee you she didn't know this Be'er Heitev. V'akol, why is this? L'chavlev ha-mitzvah. To show how you love the mitzvah. V'ashrei mi she'oved Hashem b'simcha. Fortunate are those who serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'simcha. Here's a lady who grew up in Philadelphia, never went to a Beis Yaakov, but was so heilig frum, and she loved the mitzvah that even when she was almost incoherent. Even when she was almost incoherent, she kissed the lulav and the esrog, and she taught us a lesson for life. I've told this story to thousands of people ever since I heard it around Paysach time. And I want to tell you again, it has nothing to do with the topic, but just so you should know this. Last week on Sunday morning, I had to speak at a breakfast for a whole Chevra Kadisha group, end of life issues, and I told them this story. And I said, look what my mother taught me and taught through me hundreds, if not thousands of people on the last day of her life where a doctor would have said, don't save her. She's not coherent. What kind of life is that? But the teretz is, life is precious. Even to the last moment, you never know when somebody can teach you something that's so incredible. So now we see, what does this mean? The love of mitzvahs. That a person, that's the essence of her. She's not talking, she's not responding, but she knows it's a mitzvah. How much more so each and every one of us? And we have to kiss the chamoshim. You know what Rav Pam said? Rav Pam was so edel. He said, if chas v'shalom, you drop a sefer, you know what you do? You just don't kiss it. You open it up and you learn something from it. Isn't that beautiful? You make a connection to a mitzvah. You drop the sefer, so you have to give a respect to whoever that author of that sefer was. You learn something from it. That's how you make a connection. It's an incredible thing. So how are we going to do this? How are we going to get this excitement? And I think that if we just begin to think about the opportunities that we all have for mitzvahs, and we stop for a moment and we realize that we're the luckiest people, as the Rav mentioned, we're first-class people. I'll never forget when you were telling that story, first time I went to Belgium. So there was Sabina Airlines, all over Shalom. I don't know if you remember Sabina Airlines. So I was in the airport, and there was a long line for economy and a very short line for first class. So I went on the first class line. Now, I only had an economy ticket, so the teller says, excuse me, are you first class? I said, oh, I'm a first class guy. I don't have a first class ticket, but I'm a first class guy. He said, oh, I like that. You could check in first class. He didn't let me sit first class, but he let me check in. We're first class people. What do you mean I'm an economy line? You know, that's for other people. It's Hillary's people, not our people, right? So I want to tell you, what does it mean? I'm going to tell you now something again. You should underline it in your siddur, because you can't believe how the Maral learns this pasuk. How many thousands of times have we said, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad? You know what the Maral says? You know what Echad stands for? You would not believe. Echad is Aleph, Ches, Dalet. So he says, Aleph stands for the number one of the Avos. Who was the number one of the Avos? Yaakov. Why? Because Avram unfortunately had Yishmael. Yitzchak unfortunately had Esav. Yaakov was the Bechir Sheva Avos. All his children, Mitosa Shlema. He says, what is Ches? Those are the 8 children that he had with the 2 wives. Could you believe that? With Rachel and Leah, he had Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zvulun, Yosef, Binyamin. 8. What is Daled? The 4 children that he had with the Shvachis, with Bilah and Zilpah. God, Asher, Dan, Naphtali. You know what you learned from this Heilige Maral? We're all brothers and sisters. Does it make a difference if a guy wears a shtreimel or a kippah sruga? We're all brothers and sisters. We shouldn't judge anybody. You know, there are people out in the street that don't know much about Yiddishkeit. Don't be angry at them. Be sad for them. We all had rebellion. We all had parents. We all had friends that inspired us. What did they have? Nothing. They're not rebellious. They're just Amaratzim. They don't know. And if you go to them with love, and you go to them with care, you can get them to do anything. Because they want to be appreciated. They want to be validated. So I want to tell you just 2 stories. What does it mean to validate other people? It's amazing. In Muncie today, there's a Rav. His name is Rabbi Radinsky. A brilliant Talmud Chacham. They say he finishes Shas every year, and some say he finishes Shas Bavli and Yerushalmi. So when he gives a Shabbos Shuvah Drasha, the place is packed, mamish. I've been in that shul many times, for speeches, for brisson. So he's speaking Shabbos Shuvah. I wasn't there, but I heard it from many people. And in the middle, he wants to quote a pasuk from Yeshaya, a Rashi from Yeshaya. So the Svarim, like over here, are in the back. He sees a high school boy. He says, bring me up a Yeshaya. Kid turns around, takes it off the shelf, and he comes up in front of 700 people, and he gives the Rebbe the Tanakh. The Rebbe opens it up, turns to the page, and he reads it. And he goes weiter with the drasha. After the drasha, somebody comes over to him. Rabbi Tzalel, that Rashi in Yeshaya was fabulous. Could you show it to me? He said, bring me a Yeshaya. He said, what do you mean bring Yeshaya? Didn't the kid bring you Yeshaya? He said, no, he was so nervous. He turned around, he saw a Yud on the Sefer. It was a Yirmiyah. He brought it up. Imagine if I would have told him in front of 700 people that he brought the wrong Sefer. The kid would never live it down. He'd blush. He would be so embarrassed. So I just turned the page, I mushed it off to any Rashi, and I read it, as much as I knew by heart of it. But that's quick thinking. That's the echad. You would have had a right, like, what's the matter, kid? You don't know the difference in Yirmiyah and Yeshaya? But that's sensitivity. That's what it's all about. So I want to tell you one more story. I mean, we could go till, Emaftir Nachar Paysach Afikaiman, till the morning. But, oh, really? Okay. Don't worry, I'm not going to do that. But okay. So I want to tell you a great story. It's unbelievable. What it means when a person has an excitement to do a mitzvah. I was just in Sao Paulo. Why anybody would want to live in Sao Paulo is beyond. I can't understand that. I hope there's nobody here from Brazil. But I'm just telling you, it's so dangerous there. You cannot walk into a shul. You cannot walk into a Paysach. You know why? Because it's all guarded and there's police there. And you walk into like a little booth and the camera looks you from all sides and makes sure that you're not a terrorist. And then you could go in. That's in an apartment house. That's in a school. That's in a shul. It's incredible. So I was asked this past winter to come to speak. There was an anniversary, a Kirov organization called Shalom. And a guy, Shlomo Safra, he's the head of the organization. And he asked me to be the guest speaker at their 10th annual dinner. I finished speaking, and a guy, Charles Abalafia, comes over to me. He says, Rabbi, let me take you to where you're going tonight, because I got to tell you a great story. I hear this every single day. I got to tell you a great story. You'll print it. You want to know how to spell my name? That's what they ask. Now, 98 out of 100, I can't even use those stories. But I'm a nice guy. I listen to everybody, because you never know. Those 2 stories that are worth it are worth listening to everything. So Charles Abalafia tells me like this. He said, Rabbi, I became very religious because of this Kirov organization. But even before, I was much more religious than my parents. I used to go to shul, and then over the years, through this Kirov organization, I became more religious. He said, I want to tell you a story what happened one Friday. He said, one Friday, my father calls me up. He had a home in a place called Guarujá. It took me a month to learn how to pronounce that. Guarujá. And my father calls me and he says, why don't you come to us for Shabbat? Because, there's a synagogue nearby. We know you go to the synagogue, you'll have a shul that you could daven in. Now, it's 75 miles from Sao Paulo all the way down to Guarujá. And over there, it is so dangerous on the highway, you would have to be out of your mind to stop on a highway because of bandits, carjackers, hijackers, and everything. So he makes sure, of course, that he's got a full tank of gas. And along the highway, it's not a highway, it's a one lane this way, one lane coming back, and there are favelas. Favelas are like slum areas along the road. So he's driving down. He's got about, 2 hours to drive. He drove about an hour and a half, and all of a sudden he gets a flat tire. Can't believe it, a flat tire on the highway. There's no highway. How are you going to start? He doesn't know how to fix a flat. He calls his father. Maybe you could tell me how to fix a flat. He couldn't tell him over the phone. What's he going to do? He gets out of his car. He's terrified. He says, Hashem, please help me. I want to observe Shabbat. Help me get there before sunset. Nobody stops, of course, because they think it might be a plan, to kill them. So nobody's stopping. So finally gets back into his car and he goes to the first favela. It's like a minute away. And his car's rumbling with that flat tire. And he comes into this place which is mamish like a slum. All the little boys and the girls and the cats and the dogs, they all surround him. And a guy without a shirt, a big bulfan, comes over to him and says, what are you doing here? And, they're all talking in Portuguese. That's the language. He says, listen, sir, I've got a flat tire. I got to get to Guarujá before the Shabbat. I said, I don't know if you know what Shabbat is, but I got to get there before this evening. Maybe you could help me fix the flat. A few guys tried to fix the flat. They couldn't do it. Then he told me, you saw a car on the side, 30 years old car. He says, whose car is this? The guy without the shirt says, that's mine. He says, I'll pay you I'll leave you my car. I trust you. I'll come back Sunday morning. Please take me down to Guarujá. So they make a deal, how much he's going to pay him. Guy says, okay, let me get my shirt. He says, no, there's no time. We got to go right now. We're going right now. And they get onto the highway and they're flying down the highway. Now, he figures, Charles told me, I gotta explain something to this guy. He said, listen, sir, I don't know if you ever saw a Jew in your life, but I'm Jewish. And we believe that God created the world in 6 days, and on the seventh day he rested. So tonight begins our Shabbat. So I got to get to Guarujá before sunset. So the driver looks at him and he says, you don't think I know what a Jew is? I'm not Jewish, but my mother's Jewish. Like, he said, what are you talking about? And I didn't want to tell him that meant that he was Jewish. He thought to throw him out of the car. He said, what does that mean that your mother's Jewish? He said, I'll tell you. You see, at the end of the 1930s, my mother grew up in Holland. And it was getting bad for the Jews. So my grandparents, they got on a boat. And they took my mother, who was only 8 years old, and they went on a boat all those thousands of miles, and they came to Santos. Santos is right next to Guarujá. That's a Catholic city. And my grandparents didn't want to have anything to do with Judaism, so they put my mother into a Catholic school. They raised a Catholic. She married a Catholic guy. We have a whole bunch of brothers and sisters, but she's Jewish. Well, we're not Jewish. So he said to him, where is your mother still alive? Where is she? He said, it's funny you should ask. She's in Santos, not far from Guarujá. She's in the hospital. She's dying. Now, what would any of us say if we were in the car? We just heard that the driver's mother is dying in a hospital in Santos. A guy, well, really, for all practical purposes, raised as a guy and married to a guy. Most of us would say, oh, God should bless her. She should feel well. That's not what he said. He said, could I go visit her? This guy's almost falling out of the car. You want to visit my mother? You don't even know her. No, but we're Jewish. And if we're Jewish, we care for each other. You told me your mother's Jewish. I'd like to go visit her. He says, you're unbelievable. He says, I can't believe you're going to visit a woman that you don't even know just because she's Jewish. He said, yeah. Where is she? She's on the 3rd floor, bed 10, but I'm telling you, it's a dumpy hospital. He got him there before Shabbos, and I'm telling you, Charles is such an Edel in the Neshama. He told me when the guy started driving back, he felt so bad. But he wasn't going to tell him anything. And a Jew is driving on Shabbos. The guy doesn't even know that he's a Yid, but he's driving on Shabbos. But anyway, Sunday morning, he comes up to the hospital. He walks into the room. He says, who's Maria? And she calls out, "That's me." She says, "Who are you?" He says, "You don't know me, but you have a wonderful son. And he drove me. I had to get to Guadalajara before sunset on Friday." And to get into a whole conversation. And finally he says to her, when he felt comfortable, he said, "Your son told me you're Jewish. Is that really true?" She said, "Why did he tell you that?" He said, "Because I'm Jewish. And I asked him about Jews, and I didn't think he knows what a Jew is." She said, "Yeah, I'm Jewish." He said, "You're Jewish? Do you remember anything from being Jewish?" And she closes her eyes, and she says in perfect Hebrew, "Baruch Ato Hashem Elokeinu Melech Olam Asher Kiddushanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu." And she starts crying. She cannot stop crying. She can't get those words out. Lahadlik ner shel Shabbos. And she's crying. Her body is shaking. And finally she says, "Lahadlik ner shel Shabbos." He says, "Maria, you said that perfect. How did you know that? Where did you get that from?" She said, "My grandmother used to light candles with us when I was a little child." She said, "You think I believe anything that they taught me in all those Catholic schools? My parents forced me to go there. I don't believe one thing. I only believe in one God. I always believed only in one God." I remember get the chills when I tell you this. And he says, "Maria, I want to be your friend. Please, when you get out of the hospital, call me. I'm going to come visit you." And she's crying because she's reliving the Yiddishkeit that she had as a child. And he told me 2 weeks later he went to visit her. And there was a big crucifix, a big cross on the door. And when he comes in and she's alone with him, he says, "Maria, I thought you told me you don't believe in that stuff. Why do you have that cross on your door?" She says, "You think I want it there?" He says, "You want me to get rid of it?" He says, "Sure, I wish you would. Because I hate it, but my kids gave it to me. How am I going to get rid of it?" He told me when he left, he took the cross and he broke it in his car. Listen to this. I think of this every day. And he said, "I felt that I was being Makayim, Lahavi Gelulim in Oretz." And every day in Aleinu, that's what we said. Lahavi Gelulim in Oretz. That's what I felt I was doing. He said, and 2 weeks later, she passed away. And when I told the story to Rabbi David Cohen, Rabbi David said to me, "Who knows? Look at the chesed of that Yid. Because he was excited to do the mitzvah Bikkur Cholim for somebody he didn't know, he brought her back to tshuva." She said something that she probably didn't say in 40, 50 years, that she believes in one God. Maybe when she closed her eyes the last time, she said, "Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad." And that's what happens when you love mitzvahs. And that's what happens when you love Yidden. And that's what happens when you feel an excitement for everything. So let's review everything that we said, and we'll end with a great story. Let's remember that Aaron is the best president, since Obama. Let's remember what Rabbi Elia Pruzhin has said to his grandson, Rabbi Aaron Soloveitchik. Let's not fall to that trap of a mindset of an old man. Let's remember what Diane Ehrentreu taught us. Yosef, from the Shem Shmuel, we got to be adding more every day, never being satisfied with the status quo. Let's remember what Rav Shlomo Freifeld taught us. Loi amos ki echya. Let's not live a life of death while we are alive. Let's remember shmartem es hamatzos, shmartem es hamitzvos. That's a chelik of the mitzvah that's rizus. Rotz katzvi, gibor kari, las isritzoin avicha shabashamayim. That's how Yidden in Yerushalayim woke up. Let's remember that we're all one. That's what the Maral tells us is Echad. Aleph is Yaakov. Ches are the 8 children from the 2 wives. Dalet from the 4 children from the 2 shvachos. We're all brothers and sisters. We've got to care for each other. Just like Rabbi Radinsky cared for the covet of that Talmud, who brought him the wrong sefer. Chas v'shalom, he didn't embarrass him. Let's remember what Charles Abulafia did to go visit that lady, and he brought her back to tshuva. I just want to end with this amazing story. This past year, I had the opportunity to be in Boca Raton in Florida. Over there's a Rav, his name is Rabbi Ephraim Goldberg, and it was the 10th anniversary, and there was a whole Shabbos of celebration. But his assistant Rav, Rabbi Moskowitz, told me an amazing story. He said, "I want to tell you a story that happened with my cousin in Eretz Yisrael, who was not from." He said he's a distant cousin. I never met him. And he went to a school, not where they learned any Torah, he went to a cultural school, that there's such a thing. He knew there was such a thing as Gemara and Chumash, but he never learned Gemara, he never learned Chumash or Rashi. And after high school, he went to the army. Now today, unfortunately, many of the Israeli soldiers are under such pressure that after they finish their tour of duty in the army, they want to get away. And they go for all fayokta places. They go to Thailand, they go to Asia. And he told me his cousin went to Mumbai in India. And the longer he was away from Eretz Yisrael, the less frum he became, as little frumkeit as he had. And finally, he lost everything. No shemetz of Yiddishkeit at all. And one night, it's 8 o'clock at night, he's sitting in a bar in Mumbai, sitting with his Goyish Indian friends, they're drinking, and then all of a sudden he hears the sound of a shofar. Now, a shofar is frightening, but a shofar in Mumbai at 8 o'clock at night when you're not expecting it is terrifying. He runs outside to see what's going on. There's so many people because it's a whole street of bars and pubs. He can't find who was blowing shofar. He's looking around, he's standing outside. 2 minutes later, down the block again, he hears the sound of a shofar. What is going on? Who's blowing shofar? He recognizes that Kia. He runs to his house, he opens up his calendar, and he sees that it was Yom Kippur that day. And he made some calls, and he found out it was the Lubavitcher Shliach in Mumbai who was blowing shofar at night to tell people the fast was over, they could eat, they could go to work. When he realized that he didn't even know that it was Yom Kippur, he sat down and he started crying. He could not stop crying. He cried and cried, even though he wasn't frum. But how could he not know that it was Yom Kippur? Now, the next part of the story is hard to believe. But this is what happened. The next morning, he packed his bags and he went back to Eretz Yisrael. And he enrolled in a yeshiva. And he was in that yeshiva and other yeshivas for the next 10 years. He became a frum fellow, he married a frum girl, and he just had his 5th child. So Rabbi Moskowitz is telling me this story. He said, you know, I think, he said, that Lubavitcher Shliach will never, ever know what kind of influence he had on my cousin. And my cousin will probably never meet that Chabad Shliach. He said, but now I have a new pshat in Nesana Tokef. You will never daven in Nesana Tokef the same way after this. He said, what does it say? V'sishkar kol hanishkoches, David is going to remember all the forgotten things. V'siftach ha-sefer ha-zechronis, he's going to open up the sefer of memories. U'me'elav yikoretz, tzachleinu from zichalein. It's going to read by itself. And you and Hashem are going to be sitting there, and you're watching the whole video of your life, private, public.